I'll never forget the Christmas I was booked to present Punch and Judy in a big store. I performed in the toy fair next to Santa Claus's grotto. Everything went smoothly until the man playing Santa Claus fell ill, and the manager asked me if I'd take over the role until he recovered. I accepted, as I thought it would be much more restful than doing my show. It was just a matter of sitting on a throne all day, shaking hands with the children. Next day, I arrived at the store, put on my whiskers, wig and red coat, and looked at myself in the mirror. With my 15 stone of solid flesh, I was the real Santa Claus of the Christmas card. I entered the grotto and sat on the throne, feeling like a king. Soon, there was a long queue of mothers and offspring, and the first child stood before me. He glowered at me beneath lowered eyebrows. "Hello, Sonny," I said, giving him one of my best smiles. "What do you want for Christmas?" He remained silent, and his brows got lower and lower. "Tell Santa what you want for Christmas," said his mother encouragingly. Suddenly, he pointed his finger at me, and at last he spoke. "I don't like you," he said slowly and stuck out his tongue. "I'm not so keen on you either," I thought to myself. The boy's mother grabbed her precious infant by the hand and dragged him away. I heard that she went to the complaint department and told them that her son didn't like the new Santa Claus. Another child stood before me. I repeated my set question. "You didn't bring me what I asked for last Christmas," said the little girl, giving me a terrific kick on the shin before bolting for the door. For the next 2 hours, I listened to the list of things the little Hollies expected their poor, hard-working parents to buy them. There wasn't one request under £50. "Now, be good children, and I'll come down your chimney on Christmas Eve," I told a group of boys who were trying to tip my throne over. "You'll be lucky," said one smart lad. "We don't have one. We're all electric." "Listen to old fat Gus," said another. "He gets stuck halfway." Some of the little girls were very sweet and would sit on my knee and have a long chat. But others gave one look and let out a terrific scream as their mothers dragged them towards me. I'm sure some of them would gladly have given up all their presents for the next 10 years to escape shaking hands with me. Even a child I knew quite well was terrified of me when she saw me in whiskers. I decided they ought to give Santa Claus a new image. A clean-shaven man wouldn't frighten the children half so much. I was relieved when the lunch hour came, but there was no rest for the wicked. The management had arranged for me to eat in the restaurant in full costume and public view. If you've never tried eating with a false beard, you have no idea how difficult it is. I got soup all down my whiskers and swallowed mouthfuls of hair. After I finished, I was supposed to walk round and chat to the children, but this idea was a complete flop. It meant approaching children whose mothers would never have taken them to the grotto because they knew how frightened they were of Father Christmas. As I walked round, children began to cry and parents waved to me from a distance not to come near their tables. Oh, I gave it up as a bad job and walked out of the restaurant. A man in the doorway said chattily, "I wouldn't have your job for all the tea in China," and offered me a cigarette. I put it in my mouth and he held out his lighter. Before I could say a Merry Christmas, my beard was on fire. He charged into the restaurant, brought back a glass of water, and threw it in my face. I decided that Santa Claus must be a non-smoker or perish. The afternoon went by very much like the morning, until 4:30 when the schools came out and the teenagers arrived. To my question, "What do you want for Christmas?" I got the cheekiest answers you could imagine. Some of them almost made me blush under my whiskers. Then a bunch of young thugs entered the grotto. "Let's shift him," said one, throwing a number of stink bombs at my throne. This was the last straw that broke the spirit of Father Christmas. I rushed from the grotto into the dressing room, ripped off my cloak and whiskers, and got into my ordinary suit. I didn't care if the store gave me the sack. The king had abdicated. Far from sacking me, the manager insisted I carry on until the real Santa Claus was back. Some of the customers had been complaining about the absence of the advertised Punch and Judy show, and before long, some smart shop assistant came up with a bright idea. Why couldn't I do both? The manager agreed, and I had to do the 2 shows a day, as well as appearing in the grotto. Then they had to find some excuse for Father Christmas being away from his grotto while I was doing the Punch show. The same assistant came up with another bright idea. New notices were made announcing that as a special treat for the children, Santa would present his own Punch and Judy show twice daily. The idea brought great credit to its originator, but little fun to me. The Santa Claus get-up made working the show exceedingly hot work, and the full sleeves of the gown got in the way all the time. I finished each day exhausted and was very relieved when the original Santa Claus returned the following week. The next year, another branch of the same store wanted to engage Santa Claus and his Punch and Judy show as their Christmas attraction, but I turned the offer down. One or the other, I said, but not both. However, I did think up an easier way of combining the roles. I made a Santa Claus puppet who gave out the presents at the Christmas parties I performed at. The idea became very popular with the fathers, who usually had to dress up and do all the work themselves. I'd now been with Mr. Punch for nearly 40 years. During this time, the music halls of my childhood had disappeared, and so many forms of entertainment had come and gone that I almost believed Punch and Judy too had had their day. Maybe they should give in gracefully to the pop idols, the bingo, and the telly. When I saw among the exhibits of bygones in a museum a Punch and Judy booth and a set of puppets, I was convinced that I was right. After the Christmas season, I would give up my life as a Punch and Judy man. I'd been offered a job as assistant manager in an hotel and couldn't decide whether or not to accept. I decided to sleep on it. That night, I had a strange dream in which my old friend Professor Smith appeared to me and told me I'd never part from Punch. A spiritualist friend of mine insisted that I'd been visited by the spirit of the professor who was trying to point out the road I should take. I laughed at him and told him I'd made up my mind to accept the hotel job. In any case, I had only a handful of winter engagements and no summer season booked. I decided to give my puppets to some museum so that they could remain in the limelight to be seen by children of future generations. I'd just finished writing a letter to the curator of a doll museum when the telephone rang. It was the entertainment's manager of a holiday camp. "Have you fixed next summer yet?" he asked. For a moment I was taken aback, but managed to stammer, "No." "Good. I can fix you as the children's entertainer at our camp. I used to watch your seaside shows years ago, but I couldn't for the life of me remember your name till it suddenly came to me just a few minutes ago." It seemed that fate didn't intend me to part from Mr. Punch after all. I accepted the offer and threw the letter I'd written into the fire. Secretly, I was glad that Punch and I were destined to remain together, and I wondered if my friend was right, and Professor Smith had anything to do with it. Next day, I repainted the puppets. I felt just as excited as when I'd received my first summer season booking so many years ago, and I could hardly wait for May to arrive. I wasn't disappointed. Mr. Punch became a popular favorite with the children on the camp. Not that he was without rivals. One Saturday, I found myself playing to just a handful of kiddies. What had happened? I soon found out. The television room was packed with children, all watching Batman. I was determined not to be beaten, so next day I made a puppet of Batman and one of Robin. I was carrying them into my little theatre when a young boy handed me a comic paper. "That's what we like now," he said. I could hardly believe my eyes as I turned the pages. It was a monster comic full of photographs of Frankenstein, Dracula, the monster from the Black Lagoon, and all the most terrifying creatures you could imagine. Interspersed with these were advertisements for monster clubs and do-it-yourself monster kits. So this was the modern trend. Well, if this is what they want, they'll have it, I thought. I borrowed the paper and studied it, and then went into the town and bought all the horror comics I could find. The woman in the shop told me she couldn't get enough of them. They sold like hotcakes. By the end of the week, I made a dozen or more horror puppets, and when the next Saturday came, the children read the notice outside my theatre, "Uncle Arnold's Horror Half Hour. Mr. Punch presents Batman and your favorite film monsters." That did it. The theatre was packed to suffocation. There were even kids standing at the back. The television room was empty. The children loved the show. They screamed and yelled as each monster in turn fought Batman. Finally, Punch appeared and saved both Batman and Robin from their clutches. By special request, I had to do the same show for the adults, and I was surprised how they lapped it up. When the season ended, the camp manager called me into his office. "I hope you'll come back next year, and for many years to come," he said. "It must be grand to be an uncle to so many thousands of children." It showed me how wrong I'd been to think that the Punch and Judy show was out of date, and that my days as a puppeteer were coming to a close. My diary for the winter was already full, and when I returned home, letters were waiting for me with offers from other holiday camps for the next summer, though I'd already decided to return to the same one. Instead of packing Punch off to some dusty museum, I started repainting the old road for his new lease of life. At times, Mr. Punch has been a hard taskmaster, but I've never regretted working for him. I've enjoyed every minute of my life since I first put my hand into his glove-like body and gave him life. If I had my time all over again, you would still see that small boy standing before Professor Smith, asking, "Do you think I could be a Punch and Judy man?"
You've been listening to the last part of Hand in Glove, The Adventures of a Punch and Judy Man by Arnold Crowther. The story was adapted for radio by Julia Donaldson and read for us by Douglas Leach. Well, now, just before news time, in just a few seconds, can I tell you